Okay, what about the judges? Are you ready?
Yes, the panel of judges are all ready.
Okay, so Amalia, I should pass the time to you now.
All right, thank you, Ken. All right, hopefully everybody is ready because we are going to start the final round of the debate right now. So, as usual, we would like to remind the participant, judges, and members of the floors to have all your electronic devices and sound emitting devices to be switched off or put on silent mode to avoid any kind of distraction during the debate. And then audiences, especially observers, are discouraged from using the chat box. And during the course of the speech, no audiences should be allowed to enter the room. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the final round of the first virtual Malaysian Dental Intervarsity debate competition. Congratulations for making it to the final round. So today I, Amalia, will be chairing this debate and I'll be helped by Sharon and Chiwei as the precise timekeeper. Before the debate commences, allow me to briefly explain the format of the debate and also the rules and regulations. So a team representative of a university consists of 3 main debaters, and the team that is supporting the motion is known as a government team, while the team that is opposing the motion is known as the opposition team. Each speaker will be given 6 minutes to present their speech. So during the course of the speech, after the first minute, the timekeeper will change their background, virtual background, into POI starts, meaning that the POIs can be interjected. And then at the 5th minute, they will once again change the virtual background to signify that POI cannot be interjected anymore. At the end of the 6th minute, they will again change their virtual background to signify that that's the end of the speech, and anything that is said after the 6th minute should not be brought into the judge's consideration. So while the debater is speaking, the opposing side can offer a point of information in which the speaker can choose either to accept it or to decline it. The point of information could only be raised by voice. This being said, a gentle reminder, when you're asking a POI, please make sure that you mute your Discord so we don't want to have any echo during POI. And POIs can only be offered between the 2nd and the 5th minutes of the speech, and no POI should be given on the first and the final minutes of the speech. So POIs must be done politely. No heckling, harassment, barracking is allowed during the debates, and the speaker should not be rude, abusive, or show any aggressive behavior throughout the debate. After all the debaters have spoken once, the first or the second speaker will give their reply speech, with the side begin from the opposition side. And there will be no POI during the reply speech, and 3 minutes will be given to both teams for them to prepare their reply speech. During the reply speech, the timekeeper will change the virtual background once at the 2nd minute to signify that there's 1 minute left. And also at the end of the speech, they'll change the virtual background to show that it's the end of the speech. So without further ado, allow me to introduce the judges and the debaters for today's debate. So today's debate will be chief adjudicated by Mr. Joe Chang, who, let me just briefly give the background. So Joe Chang is a senior compliance executive by profession and a Toastmaster for 7 years. He started his debating career in 2016 and has experience in adjudicating and judging layperson in debating competition since 2018 until today. And in 2019, he and his team had also been awarded the Malaysia Book of Records for being the first Malaysian debating team to win the JCI World Debating Championship. So he will be held by Dr. Ben, who is currently a fellow of International Congress of Oral Implantologists and International Teams of Implantologists. He is also a fellow of the International Academy of Facial Aesthetics. He is working in a private clinic, private practice focusing on orthodontics, dental implants, and facial aesthetic. So they will be joined by Chin Surin. She was the champion of the JCI Area Central South Debate Competition for 2019 and a Vice President Education, Summit Toastmasters Club 2020-2021, and she has many years of experience in healthcare and insurance industry. So we are joined by very impressive judges. So today's motion is this House believes that medical personnel should have priority over politicians to get vaccinated. Supporting the motion today is the government team from Team A, and opposing the motion today is the opposition team from Team B. With the power vested in me as the Speaker of the House, I hereby declare this debate starts now. So to open the debate, I call upon the Prime Minister today.
Good afternoon. I'd
Yeah.
like to confirm before I begin speaking that I am audible and visible.
Yes, you are audible and visible. Can you confirm you can see the timekeeper?
Yes, I can see the timekeeper. Thank you very much.
All right, so the timer shall start timing the moment you begin your speech, and you can begin when you're ready now.
Thank you. So, a very good afternoon to the honorable panel of judges, members of the floor, House of the Government, as well as the respected House of the Opposition. The motion that we are debating today, as mentioned earlier, is that this House believes that medical personnel should have priority over politicians to get vaccinated. So before I begin this debate in any form, I'd first like to set up several definitions. First of all, we'd like to define who medical personnel are. So medical personnel are a group of people, including but not limited to the frontliners, the healthcare providers, for example, general practitioners, dentists, and etc., etc. And the playground in which we'd like to set this debate in is, first of all, we will be debating in the context of Malaysia in the current day with the emergency ordinance in place. And with this said, the vaccines that we have currently secured, the government has currently secured, are 6.4 million AstraZeneca vaccines, 12.8 million doses of a Pfizer biotech vaccines, and is currently in negotiations with China and Russia for further vaccines. So even though the vaccines have been secured and in the near future they will be readily available, the pressing discussion that we'd like to revolve this debate about is to whom should receive the first priority to receive the vaccinations. With that said, this House believes that medical personnel should be prioritized for vaccination over politicians. So if we want to say that we want to vaccinate medical personnel first, so why shouldn't we vaccinate politicians first? So I'm going to present arguments in that sense first. So I'd like to say that we should vaccinate the politicians, yes, but we would like to prioritize the public health of the people over politicking and power struggles. The well-being of the Malaysian people is of the utmost priority in the midst of this pandemic, because as a government, your main interest is to serve your people. So some evidence backing this claim that I have is the World Health Organization has set out several guidelines to prioritize who gets first priority when it comes to vaccinations. So one of these priorities is to prioritize those who, if vaccinated, will prevent the greatest spread of the viruses. So who prevents the greatest spread of the viruses if you're vaccinated? We do not believe that it's politicians who will spread the virus the most if they are vaccinated. Instead, we believe that medical personnel are the ones who have a risk of spreading, have a greater spread of the viruses if they are unvaccinated, because they treat a large number of a vulnerable population on a frequent basis, almost a daily basis for some of them. And they are also exposed to these vulnerable situations on a daily basis. Now, with regards to the emergency ordinance as set out in the parameters earlier, the emergency ordinance of 2021 is declared to end on August the 1st of this year. And this emergency ordinance, we understand that there is a concern for democracy. And is this emergency, the government, so to speak right now, is being chaired by an independent special committee that advises the Yang di-Pertuan Agong. And this is comprised not only of members of the government, but as well as members of the opposition, for example, YB Anthony Loh, as well as independent individuals such as the former IGP, former DG of Health, etc., etc. Thus, to assuage these concerns of democracy and power struggles, there will be a check and balance system within this community with the presence of both governmental and opposition parties. Another reason why we believe that medical personnel should have priority over politicians to get vaccinated is that if you have political measures and basically democracy or these parliamentary sessions taking place, democracy is a relatively slow process, and we cannot afford to have slow reactions and constant argumentation in parliament over a bill to be passed when we have millions of lives of the people at stake. For one very pertinent example I'd like to point out is that the slow reaction and the high pushback of or at least the high argumentation between parties in the United States, has led to slow measures taken pertaining to the COVID-19 reaction, resulting in what we see now as a current death rate in the United States of more than 500,000 people. As a government, we do not want this same situation to happen to the people of our own nation. As such, in order to maintain the strength of the public health system, we advocate for the prioritization of vaccination of the medical personnel before that of the politicians. Another thing I'd like to point out is that a study published by the Lancet Public Health on the 31st of July of 2020, it showed that frontline health workers are 3 times more likely to test positive for coronavirus compared with the general population, even with the presence of PPE. Dr. Noor Hisham Abdullah, our DG, revealed a statistic of 52,293 medical personnel testing positive for the virus in the presence of PPE usage. Thus, we believe that to address this concerning situation, we have to vaccinate the medical personnel before the politicians. And as such, I rest my case. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Isaac. So now I call upon the leader of the opposition team, Izzat.
Am I visible and audible?
Yes, you are. Can you see the timekeeper?
Yes, I can see the timekeeper.
All right, you can start when you're ready.
Okay. Assalamualaikum and a lovely afternoon. I bid primarily to the panel of adjudicators, accurate timekeeper, worthy opponents on the government side, comrades of the opposition, as well as members of the floor. Today's motion is that medical personnel should have priority over politicians to get vaccinated. The government has laid down a few definitions regarding today's motion, and the opposition agrees with the definition provided by the first speaker of the government. However, we will provide you informations, elaborations, justifications, as well as evidence on why this motion is inaccurate and why this motion should fall. The role coming from side of opposition today is simple. As the first speaker, I will first make clear of our stance before moving on to clarification and rebuttals. Then I will move on to the first argument on the opposition side. My second speaker will then deliver her rebuttals and provide her own sets of arguments. Our third speaker, our whip, will then deconstruct the anatomy of today's debate and tell you why we should win. Ladies and gentlemen, our stance is very simple but very important to be understood properly. This House believes that politicians and medical personnel should have the same priority in getting vaccination. Now, the first speaker of the government has tried to tell you that we should prioritize health of people over politicking and power struggles, and that politicians should serve the people. Well, this to me sounds like a generalization of what politicians do, because they are only assuming that politician is related to problems and they're not doing anything that's beneficial. Let me tell you something, politicians do have responsibilities as well. Their main responsibilities is to ensure that the government is running and to ensure that the country is running well. And that includes to ensure that the continuity and sustained capacity of our Ministry of Health as well. And in the context of serving the people, let me tell you why politicians should get the same priority in vaccination. It's because we care about the people as well. And that brings me to my first point. Ladies and gentlemen, 310,000 cases of COVID-19 so far, with more than 1,000 deaths, according to JHU CSSE COVID-19 data. Hospitals are overwhelmed, medical personnel are struggling. I'm sure the opposition will tell you more about this. And vaccination, we're clear, it is surely the way. We have Pfizer, as mentioned, as the government, and Malaysia on Tuesday, March 2nd, 2021, granted conditional approval for the use of vaccines made by UK firm AstraZeneca and China's Sinovac. So the end goal is eventually trying to achieve herd immunity. But there are problems in terms of vaccination. And we have a group of people, or groups of people called anti-vaxxers or vax hesitants, people who are anti-vaccines and hesitant to receive vaccination. They have raised a myriad of questions, including that vaccines came out too fast. Pharmaceutical companies have not studied them for long enough. These firms might have removed barriers to produce them faster, which fuels suspicions about the vaccine's safety and effectiveness, according to NST February 7, 2020. There are also conspiracy theories alleging that the vaccines are part of population control mechanism by the World Health Organization. Absurd. Then there is a Pakistani cleric who alleged that Jews had planned to insert mind control nanochips in the vaccine. And in Malaysia's context, many Muslims are worried about the vaccine's halal status, as they may contain ingredients derived from pork. And we even have PPIM, Muslim Consumer Organization Malaysia, expressed concern about safety of Pfizer Inc.'s COVID-19. So why am I mentioning all of this? Politicians should have the same priority as medical personnel because of the influence that they have on people. They are responsible to build public trust. Listen to this. Our Prime Minister, 73 years of age, a geriatric patient, a pancreatic cancer survivor, was the first patient to get vaccinated on Wednesday, February 24, 2021. Our Prime Minister and our DG Tan Sri Dr. Nur Hisham received their vaccines in a publicly broadcasted event that was aimed at showing Malaysians the steps of vaccination. This is for what reason? To expose to people that it's safe, to show people that even your Prime Minister is taking it. PM had volunteered actually to be the first to receive the vaccine shots in order to build public confidence in the inoculation process. It shows a strong signal that the public should not be worried about vaccines. And this is not just in Malaysia, and PM is not the only leader, or not only a country leader that has done this to build public trust. Listen to the then President-elect Joe Biden's tweet in December 22nd last year. Today, I quote, "Today, I received the COVID-19 vaccine to the scientists and researchers who worked tirelessly to make this possible. Thank you. We owe you an awful lot. And to the American people, know that there is nothing to worry about. When the vaccine is available, I urge you to take it." So this is the role that politicians play. You can say that medical personnel are exposed to risk of COVID-19. Well, let me tell you something. Politicians are also exposed to the same risk, but in a different manner. The conclusion is this, ladies and gentlemen, with the reasons and evidence provided, our goal is simple. The quicker we can build trust and encourage people to get vaccination, the quicker we can vaccinate people in phases, the quicker we can get herd immunity, the quicker we can escape this hellish pandemic. Ladies and gentlemen, that is why this House believes that politicians and medical personnel should have the same priority in getting vaccination. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Izzat. Now I call upon the second speaker from the government team, Clarissa.
Hi, am I audible and visible?
Yes, you are. Can you see the timekeeper?
Yeah, I can see.
All right, you can start when you're ready. Yeah?
Okay, thank you. So, good afternoon to panel of judges, members of floor, opposition team, and also government team. Today, I will start my speech with few rebuttals, then followed by few arguments. First of all, I would like to rebut that the leader of opposition had mentioned about equality between politician and medical personnel. Look, as my Prime Minister had mentioned, the resources, yes, we do have a lot of vaccine. You have mentioned that. That's a really good point. But we lack of manpower. How are we going to vaccinate all of the people in a day? We lack of manpower to actually vaccinate them. And you can see that from the statistics, but from the news, like the vaccine already rolled out for a few weeks, but only 10,000 of people have more than 10,000 of people are vaccinated in the whole Malaysia. So that is why we need to prioritize. Because as my Prime Minister had mentioned, we want fast effect because the cases are spiking and we can't afford the time to wait longer to actually get equality between everyone to get the vaccine, because we have to fight the COVID-19 very fast. Then also, you have mentioned about eventually to achieve herd immunity. And I would say that herd immunity is slow process. In order to achieve herd immunity, you need to at least 90% of immunity reach in your population. And yes, we want fast, just like my Prime Minister mentioned, we want fast response and immediate effects. Then this followed by another argument. My first argument.
No,
Yes, please.
Do you disagree with the fact that if we build trust and encourage people to get vaccination, the quicker we can get herd immunity?
I don't disagree to that, thank you. But I do agree that all of us should get, yes, the politicians should get the vaccine, but who get first? of course, it's the medical personnel, because who gonna give the politician the jet of vaccines? It is the medical personnel, right? The nurse, our nurses and our doctors. Who, if the medical personnel are positive COVID-19, do the politician wants to get the vaccine as well? Okay, then I'll continue with my first argument about priority setting and resource allocation. I just want to reinforce what my Prime Minister had mentioned. It is according to the WHO Working Group on Ethics and COVID-19 COVID-19 policy brief. Medical personnel should justifiably be prioritized when allocating some resource because of their contribution to the health and well-being of the community. I didn't say that politician does not contribute to our community, but I say that the medical personnel health is important in preserving the health of others. Only they are healthy, they are vaccinated, they have the immunity, then they can start to help people to actually get vaccinated and to help in the treatment of COVID-19. Then this leads to my next argument. Why do I say that? No, sorry, thank you. Then next leads to my next argument. Vaccinating healthcare personnel first protects healthcare capacity. Why do I say this? In this argument, the healthcare capacity I'm referring to is the manpower we have in the front line. Healthcare workers are the backbone of our country's health system. According to Amnesty International AI review that more than 3,000 health workers are known to have died due to COVID-19 in 79 countries worldwide. And also, according to the President of Malaysian Association of Public Health Physicians, Dr. Zainal Arifin Omar said, Malaysia needs to mobilize 1 million non-medical volunteers to exist the medical frontliner due to the fact that the medical frontliner have been working for long hours just to attend the high number of over 1,000 cases of COVID-19 every day. Just for example, according to Free Malaysia Today, a healthcare worker in Sabah claims that the biggest challenge for them to actually manage the spike in COVID-19 cases is due to the lack of manpower in the hospital. The doctor even claimed that the lack of hospital staff, primarily nurses, caused many of them to work overtime until to a point where they face mental health problem. Imagine, according to what my Prime Minister have said, that the medical personnel have 3 times more vulnerable to contracting the disease even with PPP, according to the Lancet Public Health. So if they were to get the disease, no please, if they were to get the disease, they have to undergo treatment and they will have home quarantine for at least 14 days. So who are going to fill their places in the hospital? So this house believes that vaccine should be given to the medical personnel first, then the politician, because we really need these frontliners to help to fight the disease. And hence, for that, I summarize my point of why we should first give the medical personnel vaccine, because first is the resource allocation and priority setting, and second, they are the backbone of our healthcare system. For that, I rest my case. Thank you.
Thank you, Clarissa. So now it's time to hear from the second speaker from the opposition team, Shakira.
Hello, am I audible and visible?
Yes, you are. Can you see the timekeeper?
Yeah.
All right, you can start when you're ready.
The question presented before the House today, whether medical personnel should be given priority over politicians to get vaccinated. It is not that we don't care about, it's not that we don't deny the fact that yes, medical personnel have their own risks as well. But we believe that politicians should be given the same priority because they are closely intertwined. The vaccination should be done hand to hand. Ladies and gentlemen, a very good afternoon. I bid to the honorable adjudicators, accurate timekeeper, Mr. Chair Speaker, my learned opponents from the government side, my fellow teammates from the opposition side, ladies and gentlemen in the audience, and viewers today. Debating on today's motion that this House believes medical personnel should have priority over politicians to get vaccinated, we from the opposition side strongly disagree with today's motion. Ladies and gentlemen, we believe it should be done hand to hand. And before I move on with my case today, I would like to address a few things from the government side. The first speaker has said that medical personnel could spread infection to the population. They are exposed to risk. But politicians, what I would like to stress on here is that politicians, they are exposed to the risk as well. Although the nature is not the same, although politicians don't get infected because they work in hospitals, but politicians have the obligations to go and do press conference. They have to go they have to make plans, they have to make policies, they have to go meetings. Although some meetings can be done online, I don't deny that, but some negotiations have to be done physical. And for all these reasons, it put politicians at risk the same way as our medical personnel. Although the nature is different, but risk is still a risk, and that is the reason why we believe that they should have given the same priority with the medical personnel. Besides that, the second speaker also mentioned about lack of manpower. But according to NST article in January 2021, the Ministry of Health has aimed Malaysia to achieve her immunity by 80%. And in a survey by the Health Ministry survey that was conducted online, about 33% of our population is unsure about vaccination, or they are unwilling to do that. So who have the power to change this perspective or the belief of our citizens? It is the politicians. They have a bigger impact. They have a bigger influence to our citizens. And that is the reason why we believe that they should be given the same priority, because so that they can influence our citizens. The second speaker also has mentioned about they want to protect the healthcare capacity. So what about our leaders? Can Malaysia live, or can the country still move forward without our leaders? So they have their own responsibility as well. Therefore, they also must be prioritized. Ladies and gentlemen, let me come to my first argument of the day. The reason why we from the opposition side strongly believe that medical personnel and politicians should have the same priority when regarding vaccination is because, number one, politicians are exposed to the same risk. The role of politician is as important as the medical personnel, because in order for Malaysia and our leaders to continue to govern the country, especially in this pandemic, we cannot afford our leaders to die. We cannot afford our leaders to get sick. So in order for them to do their job, they need to get vaccinated so that we can avoid any political instability. The evidence for this is that according to Bernama, last year in September, there are Sabah election, right? So because of that Sabah election, there's a third wave of infection. When people say, okay, why do we have to do Sabah election in the first place? Well, because under Article 54(1) of the Federal Constitution, if a casual vacancy arises in the Dewan Raya, it shall be filled within 60 days from the date. So that is why Sabah election was done. And because of all these political reasons and because of their obligations that they have to do, that is why the Sabah election was done. And from there, just because politicians don't get vaccinated, third wave had happened. So when we have the vaccines right now and we continue to do this, then we could, fourth wave could come to Malaysia, and we cannot afford to do that. This brings to my second point, where the reason why we believe that medical personnel and politicians should be given the same priority is because politicians play a big role in our country to continue governing the country, to ensure the continuity of the country's governance, in order for the country to carry on its duty and their obligations. And by protecting the politicians, we are able to protect the constitution. By protecting that constitution, we are able to protect our citizens. Therefore, the leaders are the ones that uphold that constituents, and they have to be accessible to the citizens, because that is their responsibility. How are they able to be accessible to their citizens if they are not safe? They are exposing themselves too. They are at high risk too. They don't have any personal protective equipment to help them to help protect themselves. So that is why, ladies and gentlemen, I believe that politicians should have the same right as medical personnel in order for them to get vaccinated. And for all these reasons, ladies and gentlemen, I believe that politicians should have the same right as our medical personnel to get vaccinated. With that, I shall yield the floor to the next speaker. Thank you.
Thank you, Shakira. So to end the first part of the debate from side government, I call upon the government third speaker, Benjamin.
Wait, I'm so sorry. Can I just use the toilet for just 2 minutes?
Oh, all right. All right, Benjamin, can you unmute yourself? We cannot hear you.
Okay, can you hear me? And can you see?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
You can see the timekeeper too.
All right, okay. You can start when you're ready.
A very good evening to the panel of adjudicators, members of the floor, House of the Government, and the House of the Opposition. As the third speaker of the government team, I'll first begin by refuting some points from the side opposition. So the first opposition speaker argument was about how politicians and healthcare personnel should have the same prioritization, but engaging in that perspective, there wouldn't actually be an issue to debate about. The whole point of this debate right now is that we have to know who to prioritize. To say that they deserve the same kind of treatment, the same kind of vaccination priority implies that we're not putting any sort of criteria on that. And also, the first opposition speaker argument was about raising awareness regarding vaccination, and these are well moderated and facilitated by the politicians, by having these politicians taking the vaccine first, just to prove to the people. But then, actually, all they have to do is just to issue the vaccine before the general public, right? So they can actually just look at the results of how these medical personnel are actually, or even any other priority groups are actually reacting with this result. Because the thing here is, the general public is not getting the vaccination first, so they can actually get to wait to see the results. Yes, what's your POI?
Rather than having the same hierarchy of priorities suggesting, rather than having different hierarchy of priorities suggesting that one is the same with another, isn't that debatable, don't you think?
Sorry, can you just repeat your question?
Rather than suggesting, I'll put it simple, rather than suggesting that the priority is different and suggesting that priority should be the same, isn't that debatable?
Well, priority should be the same. There's nothing to, priority should be different. There's nothing to debate about that. All right, actually, moving on to actually rebuilding arguments that were refuted by the opposition side. So the second speaker kind of refuted the argument that was actually refuted by the second speaker, opposition speaker, was that our prime minister disregarded that they have disregarded that the government, the politician, don't have responsibility. But the original argument that we actually intend as the government to propose was that yes, we agree that they have responsibilities, but the execution of these responsibilities were not well executed. For instance, lifting the MCO prematurely actually causes the rise of COVID-19 cases. Therefore, our argument that the poor execution of politicians still stands even in light of the opposition's refutation. All right, let's move on to addressing, or actually to summarize the flow of this debate. And I will address the clash of points from both sides of the houses, and actually using important questions to as a benchmark to actually evaluate this debate. But before I do that, let's actually recap the parameters of the debate that we're setting in this debate in the current day Malaysia with the imposition of the emergency ordinance, or Darurat, as most Malaysians are familiar with. C, vaccine quantities are enough to accommodate for both the number of medical personnel and politicians. However, the prevailing issue in this debate that needs to be addressed and discussed is whom should receive the first priority to the vaccination. All right, so here's a question as a benchmark. Which group is at the higher risk? In this premise, we, the government house, has actually contributed that the medical personnel are at a higher risk compared to the politician, despite having PPE instead of having PPE to be imposed for preventive measures, they are actually still highly vulnerable to getting infected by the virus. And this is supported by the study published in the Lancet Public, where frontline healthcare workers are actually 3 times more likely to test positive for coronavirus compared with the general population. And even if they use adequate personal protective equipment. And this is also supported by another study, whereby, not a study, but more so a statistic, where as of December 15, a total of 52,593 medical personnel had been tested positive by the virus, has been mentioned by the Health Director General Dr. Noor Hisham Abdullah in the New Straits Times. So let's talk about how opposition sort of contributed in this premise of which group is actually at high risk. Well, the opposition did touch very briefly on how these politicians don't have PPE to begin with. But here's the thing, the opposition didn't really give justification as to why the politicians are actually at high risk, when actually all the general public everyone is actually at risk if they don't have PPE, but merely mentioned that they have risk, but of different measure have mentioned by the second opposition speaker in a rebuttal. And another premise that I would like to talk about is which group role are more important to improve the situation that COVID-19 pandemic. So in this premise, we, the government, has already contributed that prioritizing public health over politicking and power struggles, because the well-being of the infected Malaysian people are at the utmost priority. And because of that, they are only able to be treated by medical personnel who would be continuously treating these patients. So the role of the politician is actually less significant, since democracy is actually a slow process and we cannot afford to have slow reaction. If we actually get these medical personnel the vaccines, they're going to get immediate action of treating this patient immediately. With this arguments and also these evaluation, the side government strongly believes that medical personnel should be prioritized in getting the vaccination compared to the politicians. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Benjamin. To end the first part of today's debate, I call upon the opposition third speaker, Ain Ashraf.
Okay, am I audible and visible?
Yes, you are. Can you see the timekeeper?
Sharon, right?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I can.
You can start when you're ready.
Okay, give me a moment. Okay, thank you, housekeeper. Assalamualaikum and a very good afternoon. I bid to the honorable judges, to the punctual timekeeper, my worthy opponents, and my respected and hardworking fellow teammates. So, as I stand here as a third speaker from the opposition team, I would like to stand strongly against the motion today, which is this house believes medical personnel should have priority over politicians to get vaccinated. So we strongly believe that it is false, and politicians should have the same priority as medical personnel, as they are at the same importance running this country. So to start off, the issues that I have with this debate today and the clashes that I have is that the government side keeps saying that the medical personnel are at risk, and they keep revolving around the fact of one evidence that they keep saying medical personnel are 3 times more risky to be infected by COVID-19, which is not false. We cannot deny that they are, because they are the ones treating the COVID-19. However, the first speaker, which is the Prime Minister of the government team, he mentioned and he defined medical personnel as everyone in the frontliners in the healthcare system, meaning dentists, nurses, and sociologists and things like that, right? So we are, from the opposition team, ladies and gentlemen, we are trying to say that politicians should be given the same prioritization as the medical personnel. So maybe in the sense that the medical personnel who are actually responsible for the COVID-19 patients, they can receive hand in hand with our politicians and the dentists and the ones who do not have to treat people nowadays. They can be halted treatment first, because politicians actually play a big role in getting the vaccine in the first place. Without the negotiations of the vaccine, without actually getting the vaccines from other countries, we would not have the vaccine in the first place. So actually politicians are playing a big role here in getting the vaccines in the first place. So the third speaker has mentioned to you that lifting the MCO prematurely could actually it was basically a stupid move, right? So what we were trying to say here, even it was because of the economical downfall that we are experiencing. The politicians did not have a choice. They need to do that because we want to ensure the economical continuation. So what we also did, what the government and what the politicians also did is that they have established some rules and regulations. They have established some punishments to people who actually violates this type of MCO. So not everyone could have a freedom that they deserve. Please wait a moment. Also, the issue that I have is that they keep comparing who is at greater risk. Well, I say, and the second speaker from the opposition has told you that they are actually exposed to the equal amounts of risk. The level of risk is actually the same. However, it is of different nature. So my second speaker has also pointed out according to Bernama, our Prime Minister has admitted that maybe the general election done in Sabah was one of the things that causes the third wave, right? So this is saying that they were actually exposed to the COVID-19 virus as much as the medical personnel. However, the government is only thinking about how the medical personnel is exposed to COVID-19 viruses because they are treating them. Well, obviously, but how about the people who do not have statistics or the population who are actually infected by the viruses but do not know that they are infected in the first place? You are only confirming what is already confirmed. So to recap the points that have been given by our side of opposition is we mentioned that it could influence the anti-vaxxers or the vaccine hesitant population in our country to actually get the vaccines, right? And my leader of opposition has told you that the Prime Minister and also the DG has received the vaccine publicly, and it has been broadcasted nationwide. So this is why the third speaker also mentioned that this is all part of the politician agenda. I do not understand why the government keeps thinking the politicians are in a bad way and are trying to do a power struggle. When the politicians are doing their job to maintain and governing the country, as told by my second speaker, so they are actually trying to influence the anti-vaccines and the vax hesitants to receive the vaccine and achieve herd immunity, which has also been mentioned by your second speaker. And they say that 90% of the people, 90% of the people needs to be vaccinated or needs to be immune to COVID-19 virus in order to achieve herd immunity. And this is why we think that the government did not have enough research, because according to WHO, 60% only to be vaccinated in order to achieve herd immunity. However, let me just rephrase this. The Malaysian states that they want 80% of the population to be vaccinated. It's not 90%. They didn't even have enough research to argue this type of argument that was presented by leader of opposition. So to think about the roles that the politicians have in our country, it is to track the impact of COVID-19 virus, and it's also to advise the public health measures. So without all the SOPs, without all this vaccination negotiation done by any other countries, we wouldn't have a vaccine in the first place. We wouldn't have this much of cases. Maybe we would have much more cases because there would be enough SOPs. So the politicians did what they did, and we are not denying that the medical personnel should be given the vaccine first. We are saying we should have equal rights for the politicians and the medical personnel, because number one, the risks are greater, and number two is it could influence the anti-vaxxers and vaccine hesitants, and also they are exposed to the same risk but of different nature, and the government completely misunderstood that. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, adjudicators and members of the floor, this is why the opposition believe that this motion should fall, and I stand strongly against the motion today, which is this House believes medical personnel should have priority over politicians to get vaccinated. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you, Ain Ashraf. With that, the first section of this debate has ended. Both the teams will now be given 3 minutes to prepare for the reply speech. The reply speech arena will begin with us hearing from the side opposition. You have 3 minutes to prepare.
Dear House Speaker, 3 minutes time is up.
All right, 3 minutes is up. Now I call upon the opposition side to present your reply speech.
Hello, am I audible and visible?
Yes, you are. Can you see the timekeeper?
Yeah.
All right, you can start when you're ready.
Let me begin my speech with a quote. You don't lead people just what you say to them. You lead them by what they see you do. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome for the last time from today's proposition side. We have arrived again at the end of the debate where I will emphasize on my team's point and what the point from the government that has clashed with today's debate. The problem today is that we are not denying that medical personnel deserve to get vaccinated. We acknowledge the risk that they have, but we also must take into consideration regarding the risks and the importance of what our politicians have as a whole. Is looking at negative only. We know that medical personnel have higher risk, but we just want equality for vaccination because we believe that politicians also have the same level of risk, just different nature. The reason why we believe that medical personnel and politicians should have the same priority is because, number one, politicians can be a big impact to our citizens. They can influence our citizens. They relate to our citizens a lot better than our medical personnel. They hold that power of influencing people because that is what they do. So in order for us to build that public trust, in order for us to go towards that herd immunity, that 80% of herd immunity that we want to curb COVID-19, we need to take into consideration that politicians have a big impact in order for us to stop COVID-19. Therefore, they must be given priority for COVID-19 vaccination. The second reason is because politicians are exposed to the same level of risk, just different nature. If they don't have PPE, but they still have to carry out their obligations. The third point is because politicians must continue governing for the country, and without us protecting the constitutions, then we are not able to protect our citizens. And it is impossible to do that without vaccination, without giving vaccination to our politicians. Ladies and gentlemen, for all these reasons, we are not catering this debate just to win, but we believe and we acknowledge that both medical personnel and politicians have the same level of risk. Therefore, they must have the same level of priority in terms of getting vaccination. Before I rest my case, we from the opposition team strongly agree that today's motion must fall. And for all these reasons that I said earlier, I beg you to propose. Thank you.
Thank you, Shakira. So to end this debate, now I call upon government's team to present your reply speech.
Once again, for the last time today, I'd like to confirm that I am both audible and visible.
Yes, you are. Isaac, can you see the timekeeper?
I'm able to see the timekeeper.
All right, start when you're ready.
All right, so a very good afternoon once again to the honorable panel of judges, the respected members of the floor, my very respected members of the opposition who have presented very compelling arguments, as well as the house of this government. So before I begin pointing out some of the flaws in my opponent's team, or at least, sorry, allow me to point out some flaws in the arguments made by the opposition team. First of all, the third speaker of the government said that 60% of the population was only required for herd immunity. However, I'd like to point out that the study that we quoted was from the WHO updated 31st December 2020, which said that 95% of the population needed to be vaccinated for measles, 80% minimum for polio, and for COVID-19, the percentage is unknown. Thus, we decided to state a conservative figure that should be given out in order to ensure the safety of the people. Second of all, we are saying the opposition goes around saying that, yes, the politicians are role models. Yes, they are all that. But yes, we do agree that politicians are role models. But can we also say that frontliners are not role models? Because frontliners are the educated population that are responsible for maintaining the safety and the public health of this nation in this pandemic. Furthermore, the reason why we believe they should be vaccinated first, we need immediate effect. If the politicians were to be vaccinated slightly later, after the frontliners and the medical personnel, would that bring any harm? We do not believe that it would bring long-lasting detrimental harm. However, we believe that by giving equal opportunity, equal vaccination to both the frontliners and the politicians, we are reducing certain frontliners' opportunity at receiving this vaccine. Now, if you want to raise awareness, they're talking about raising awareness regarding the vaccines, using politicians as role models. As I mentioned, frontliners, are they not role models as well? All you have to do is issue the vaccine to the politician before the general public, as my third speaker of the government has mentioned. Another thing they talk about is that risk of a different kind. What is a risk of a different kind? Is the risk of not contracting COVID basically being exposed to the virus itself? Therefore, we feel that this argument of a risk of a different kind is null and void. Take, for example, the Sabah election. Let's look at the possibility of an MP dying in government right now as compared to maintaining the stability of the healthcare system in the government in this day and age. We believe it is more important, and the possibility of an unstable healthcare profession in this pandemic is of more importance as compared to the possibility of an MP dying while in government today. And with that, basically to summarize all the points, we believe, first of all, that people of the highest risk should be considered. Secondly, we believe that, okay, never mind, considering that my time is up, nothing else will be considered. I rest my case and I leave this decision up to the judges. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Isaac. With that, the debate today has come to an end. We will now wait for the panel of adjudicators to give us the result, whether the House accepts or declines the motion. Can the Zoom master bring the judges to the breakout room? Hello, guys. The results are now in my hand. Hello.
That's me screaming
Okay,
internally now.
so it'll be very nice if all the participants can on your camera and maybe unmute yourself when when announcing so that we can see some reaction from you. This is the final, so we want to have some, reaction. Oh, I can see. Yeah. All right, Team UITM are all here. Do you on your camera?
I'm not sure if Izzat is here.
Yeah,
Oh.
because he had to prepare to go back.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
okay. All right. So I'll just continue. The floor thanks the panel of adjudicators. We also thank both teams for being here today and congratulations for making it into finals. Whatever the decision today, I mean, you guys are winning anyway, right? So, so I'm just gonna announce it. So before we announce whether the motion is accepted or rejected, I think we just start with the best speaker first. So the best speaker for this round is, drum roll, please. Shakira from Congratulations.
Congrats, Kira.
Congratulations. It was a lovely speech.
Yeah.
You guys were amazing too.
Okay, so
Honor comes from the best speaker.
with the power that is given to me as the Speaker of the House, the motion this House believes that medical personnel should have priority over politicians to get vaccinated is, drum roll again, decline. Side opposition wins this time.
Oh my god.
Great job, IMU. We really had a
Oh
hard
my
time.
god, IMU, you guys are amazing.
Amazing. I swear
Amazing.
to God.
Like, seriously, I'm scared of y'all.
Congratulations to both teams, but congratulations for the opposition side for winning this final, and also to Shakira for winning the best debater for this round. So for the other team, don't worry. I think you guys can always come next year. You guys are still very young.
We will have more experience the next time. This is actually our first time.
All right. So we would like to call upon the judges to give some comments before we dismiss.
Definitely, Amalia. First of all, I'd like to call upon Dr. Ben to start off the feedback session. So Dr. Ben, the floor is yours. Dr. Ben? I think Dr. Ben may be away from keyboard for a short moment. No worries.
Okay, yeah.
Yes, Dr. Ben, you're there.
Okay, now both the teams has come up with good strategy, incorporating a lot of contents that is getting from the papers, from the literatures, as well as from the WHO, which is very good. In fact, they are very current, and both the teams exhibit that professionalism in come up with all those data, which is very good. When it comes to explaining this current thing, which is real, which is not a virtual thing, I think a certain point should be given to reality, in a sense that when you want to implement something, it must be real and it must be beneficial to the population as a whole, right? On the score of who wins and who doesn't win, actually, it's almost on par. Both the teams are on par. But what comes out best is from the reply person. The person who summed it up and replied has an edge over to win this debate. And I think both teams are scored very well. And the one who won, I believe, is the reply speech that carries some weight over the other person, right? Yeah, Joe.
All right. Thank you so much, Dr. Ben. So let's give a round of applause to Dr. Ben for spending his time with us. Thank you so much, Dr. Ben. All right. So moving on, I'd like to summon my another learner colleague, Serene.
Give me a minute. Oh, hi, guys. Nice having you guys again. To be very honest, I think before I give a little more, I wanted to compliment the government. You guys took out our feedback, and this time round, you guys did so much better compared to the last round. And Carissa, when you speak it out, it's so confident. Like I was like, okay, that's great. You actually took out the feedback, and at least when we see you, we hear you, the voice, your tone, you're confident with the points that you actually pointed it out. And congratulations, Clarissa, you have improved, and our government team, you guys did so much better. And I think I want to raise it up something aside. Benjamin, during when you convey the explanation, it was not very clear. So that's where I kind of mark you guys down at that point, because I think you have tried to summarize the speaker one and speaker two's the messages and re-convey it back, but it doesn't give you a really strong point as you as a third speaker, what is the point that you want to convey. So this is something that you could take note of, and you guys have a really good potential. Really look forward that the next time I could be here to witness that on the next competition. As for the winner team, opposition, Shakira, you have impressed all of us. I believe like how the opposition win was how you guys were so calm, and you guys have this strong, firm belief into the points that you want to convey. So when the moment that you have such a strong belief, the points that you deliver out is so clear and the flow is smooth, people would actually follow a wrong way, and it's clearer to follow it on. And compliment to Shakira, you did really well. When it comes to presenting points, people would influencing all of us to think that, hey, politician has the equal right. They have risk too. You see, that kind, that eye contact given to us, how firm it was. Please stay that way, and congratulations. I really love this grand finale. I really enjoyed it. Back to you, CJ.
All right, thank you so much, Suri. So to fellow debaters, for both sides, to be really honest, to give you a little bit of insight what happened within the judges prior to this topic starting to be debated by both of you, I have to tell you that the judges do have our own preconceived preconceived positions with regards to this particular topic. But I think we were quite amazed, at the same time swayed by both teams, because your arguments are really compelling and the data that you guys have presented was really, really good. It shows a lot in terms of the hard work that you have put in. And we also take into consideration for the time that was allocated to you for you to prepare. It was not easy. I think you have less than 24 hours to prepare. At the same time, you need to prepare for topics without knowing whether you're going for or against the particular motion. So taking that all into consideration, we were really, really amazed. We felt that each and every single one of you, we also saw growth along the way, especially from the government's team. We see there's a very steady mark in terms of improving from round to round. You take feedbacks seriously and you really go up the mark. As for the opposition, though your improvements may not be so extreme as compared to the government, but one thing is that's actually quite clear for your team is that the consistency in your performance. You have been very consistently performing, and your clarifications, your arguments, and your source of reference, everything is on the dot. So for that, I would like to compliment both. As an overall of feedback, to actually pinpoint in terms of how this particular motion is being debated and the pointers that I still feel that it could actually be improved for this particular motion. I think one of the things whereby you could improve on is, I think what the government could have actually done better to actually win over the argument was actually the fact whereby, especially I think opposition was really smart in terms of making it both. I think that was something that a lot of people didn't really thought that, oh, that's actually a way of debating, because usually it's affirmative, or you actually affirm it, or you actually negate it, or you stand on the opposition of it. So when the opposition came up with an idea of taking both as equally important, and you should actually get both vaccinated, it throws a lot of people off. So I think that part was really, really smart. And I was thinking that, okay, so now you're saying both, so how are you going to play around? And I think the reason that opposition scores quite highly in terms of content and strategy on my books, I think it's because government, there's actually a flaw in their argument that you didn't actually exploit. I think one of them is actually whenever you say something there's a priority, okay, everything in life or everything in the economy, it will always have something of priority. I think this is something that you guys debated in the same semi-finals also. But I think you guys didn't go deeper in terms of why is there a priority to begin with. And I think during this debate, the arguments, I didn't hear clearly in terms of you setting out and telling me why medical personnel should have a higher priority when it comes to vaccination first. And you should have just go deeper and say that because when it comes to resources, when it comes to vaccines, it's always limited. It's because of the limited resources, the scarce resources, that causes this whole issue of who should get it first. Medical personnel should get it first, politicians should get it first. Which I think if you have exploited that, I would really enjoy seeing how opposition is going to struggle around and tell you how to get both parties to actually be on the list together. Because the fact is, it's really scarce resources, and hence whereby right until today, Malaysia has been buying vaccines from so many different areas. Rather than getting one from Pfizer, they get from different places. Why? Because it's not easy to get the sources, and it's because it's scarce resources. And that would have been something that you can have just raised, that it will become a very big struggle for opposition to still tell you that, okay, although it's scarce, but still I put it equally. So I was hoping that that would be something you could have exploited, but you didn't. So that's why I give very high points to opposition, because when they opened this hole, I was writing in my notes, okay, this is a big hole. I was thinking somebody please raise POI, but nothing came out from the government. So I think it's quite a waste. There are moments whereby I think there were moments in terms of POI was being raised to Benjamin, if I'm not mistaken, whereby even the POI itself is not too clear. I got lost in terms of what's the question is really about. Could the opposition please remind me what was the POI you are trying to raise? Because and on first instance, I also lost you. What is it being asked actually? I think it's Ashraf, is it? Ain Ashraf is the one who asked.
I think it was our first speaker, Izzat, but I think it goes somewhere along the lines of, because Benjamin said it was not debatable, and I think Izzat said something like, do you not think giving equal prioritization to politicians and medical personnel to debatable instead of just prioritizing one? Is not prioritizing two to equitable?
You yourself also find it hard to explain what is the question.
Yeah.
And you imagine we as judges, when I listened that, I was like, then I could see Benjamin also like doesn't know that, but Benjamin still tries to answer the question. Then I was like, okay, I don't get the question, I shall move on because you're not clear with the question. Okay, if today, remember this, when POI is being asked of you, it's very unclear. You know outright that it's unclear. Then you should just say, can you make your question simpler? I don't understand you. So if they repeat themselves, you're still unclear, you say, I'm so sorry, I still don't get you, but I do not want to waste my time, I shall move on. Cut people off. Just tell them, sorry, you're not clear. I need to move on with my time to actually present my points. Because I think Benjamin, I think you were quite soft in that sense, whereby you should just cut him off, then just move on. Yes. Okay. So Isaac, among all the three judges, we marked you highly as an individual for best debater. If today there will be a best debater, that will be Shakira. I think coming off number 2 would exactly be yourself. Why do we think so? We think that one of the major reasons is because we saw there was, in compared to your past performance, this time round, you improved a lot as in really, really a lot. You're not shaky in your opening, you're very composed, and your pointers were actually well paced, and we could follow your argument accordingly. What I think that you could have actually improved was just that exactly what Dr. Ben has raised is your reply speech. That flop at the very end, you could have done better. Yeah, I think it ends off too fast. I think you lost track of time and you were a bit nervous.
Arguments.
Yeah, so I think if you were to actually conclude it nicely, wrap it up nicely, the judges would have actually been quite amazed, and I think it will become your marks between you and Shakira will be so close that we will be deciding in terms of who should actually get the best debater. But because of that, the gap is slightly bigger. So I think that what caused it. And other things is in terms of, I think government, I really wanted to encourage you to actually make a comeback. If next year, if you can still compete, I really look forward to you making a comeback. Because as an overall, we see really consistent improvements, and there's a lot of things that you guys could improve. And yeah, you guys will actually see there's actually a steady improvement. As for the opposition, we just feel that Your arguments, your mannerism is very good. I do not know where you learned it or how you guys train. Your mannerism was actually very on point in terms of how international debaters want it. Not too aggressive, but in a very logical manner, you persuade us in terms of why is it like that, and your points are so clear that today, if I close a book or I just listen to you, I can totally follow your, okay, point A, or you're saying that this is actually of a different risk that's being posed. Point B, politicians and medical personnel, yes, may handle different realms, but at the end of the day, it's actually, they are still serving the public. Point C, so it's very clear for us, where government along the way, I think from first till third speaker got halfway through, it got jumbled up a bit, whereby we hear already, it's like we cannot find a very clear connection from first, second, and third speaker, and that's what cost them also. So I think UITM, respect, you guys did a really well job, but as an overall to both side debaters, for as an individual and as a team, I'd like to remind you that in the debate, I do not know how do you guys feel when you guys get this debate motion. I can tell you the OC team when they first came to me with this motion, they were debating among themselves. Some of them don't feel comfortable with the motion because they felt it's very one-sided. Some of them felt very uncomfortable because even among the judges, there's already a very clear cut in terms of preconceived judgment towards the topic. It's like, oh, I'm going to stand for this side already, definitely. But I wanted to remind everyone when it comes to debate is that the motion that has always been put on the floor is always debatable, depending on where is your sources coming from and the data that you get it from. I heard both sides of the your sources and whatnot. I find that opposition still did a very good job in getting sources. They quoted Joe Biden. They quoted a lot of international press and media and whatnot. Whereas the government focused more on WHO and Malaysia, but it lacks more. There should be more resources. And one of the arguments that I felt that it was it's quite a waste that you guys did not actually raise was actually the part whereby for opposition side I said why politicians is important also. I think one of the points that you failed to actually raise was actually because politicians are people elected officials. They are empowered by the people to execute duty for the people. So that is why they have the obligation to actually uphold any kind of duty towards the people. If not, they will be taking taxpayers' money as a salary without doing a job. So that's why it's quite important for them to play that role in terms of exhibiting public confidence by showing that they actually got the vaccine and it's actually clear, which I think you guys got hub a bit, but you didn't go deep enough. Then government doesn't seem like really addressing that issue in terms of people who are standing in the middle, whereby I'm not sure, should I go for vaccine or should I go anti-vaccine? So government, I don't really hear that kind of counter arguments against that particular point, and that point itself is very strong for them. So I think that is where the marks draw even further away. As an overall, to both parties, if you really wanted to improve on debating and even orating yourself, because some of you, I noticed that you get very nervous and it jumbles up your way that you present as an overall, and even the line of thought of your whole presentation. I think you guys could seriously consider in joining those kind of public speaking workshops, even Toastmasters. Like MDA itself has its own Kuala Lumpur Selangor Toastmasters Club, which is being done virtually. You can consider these kind of things to go there and polish up your skills, because they do teach you how to think impromptu, how to speak, how to actually came up with a better flow of speaking, even without needing a script and whatnot, which I think government side, your end, I think, yeah, you definitely did need all these skills, whereby the opposition is quite polished. Yeah. So I think as an overall, that's that. For individual, if you like more feedbacks, you can come to me. But nevertheless, I congratulate both teams and I shall pass back the floor to the Speaker of the House. Thank you.
All right, thank you to the judges. So with that, the parliament dismissed, and I would like to pass it to Ken. Is Ken?